Welcome back to the final episode of the Escapades, episode 8, in the Bailey. This escapade takes place in the Old Bailey courtroom, where the defendant is none other than Sholmes himself, and the charge is a most mysterious murder. Ryunosuke naturally advocates for the defense against the unflappable Reaper, Lord Van Zykes, but Sholmes' testimony calls the true culprit of the crime into question. Well, of course it does. Date unknown. The Old Bailey courtroom. Ooh. It's the unknown bit that gets me. Is this a closed court? This court is now in session for the trial of Mr. Herlock Sholmes. This is a most extraordinary case of murder. Counsel, I assume I may proceed. Yes, my lord. The defense is ready. At your discretion, my lord. Very well, I hereby call on the prosecution to introduce the case. He's still got his cape on at this point, so... The incident in question took place 2 days ago, late at night, when the ground was blanketed with snow. The location of the incident was the residence of the accused Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Indeed. The now famous address of number 221B Baker Street, was it? The address may have enjoyed fame once, my lord, but will henceforth enjoy infamy for this grim crime. Yes, sir. Well put. Victim, a certain Madame Rosie, was found asphyxiated on the accused sofa. My word.
Objection!
But it's unclear as to whether the victim was actually killed in the defendant's suite or not. I mean, it still raises a lot of questions for me straight away, but I can't present any evidence, like there's nothing to look at. I can't do this case properly. I'd love to. After all, when Mr. Sholmes left the room for only a brief moment, Madame Rosie somehow vanished herself out of his room completely. What? How? Vanished herself, counsel? The victim? Quite true, my lord. There is but one adjoining door between my drawing room and the kitchen. Yet having brewed some tea in the kitchen, I returned to find the room completely empty. There was nobody else present. Ordinarily, my fellow lodger Iris would have been at home. However, on the day in question, she had been invited to a meeting of a scientific society in the city. I'm afraid you have a propensity for exaggeration, sir. You claim the victim vanished herself, but really, this implies she's not dead? Maybe? Seems to me entirely plausible that she chose to leave via the main entrance to your suite. As it happens, my lord, the door to the accused's room was locked at the time, from the inside. Very true, Inspector. As such, I can say with considerable surety that the victim did not leave via my front door. The window, then. But what about, aha, yes. She could have snuck out through a window.
Objection!
The windows in the room were not locked, it's true, and the victim had the opportunity, However, there was snow all around the building outside, and not a patch of it had been disturbed. Could have snowed after she left? Would my learned friend care to explain how the victim could have left without leaving a trail? So the victim, Madame Rosie, somehow vanished from the scene before she was killed. Naturally, I was alarmed by the sudden disappearance of my guest. So I summoned this gentleman who resided in the attic room above my own, and we took a cab to Scotland Yard. I can confirm that the defendant called for me, and I saw his suite on my way downstairs. And yes, I'm quite sure it was empty, just as Mr. Sholmes had said. When's the murder come into it, though? That's the question. When we reached the yard, this very detective happened to be there. Ah, well, yes, you see, I was just in my office for a while, having got back from some, important business. And then, having explained the situation to the inspector, We traveled back to Baker Street together. At that time, there were no footprints in the snow around the building other than the ones we'd made. Now they're gonna find the body, got it. Do I take it then, Counsel, that you personally witnessed the scene where the incident took place? No, my lord. I went straight up to bed in my own room in the attic. Why would you do that? I'd be too interested to be like, talk to everyone, just be like, okay, so what do we think happened? What's going on here? Inspector Gregson, however, was met with a most blood-curdling sight. On Mr. Sholmes' sofa, the vanished Madame Rosie, motionless. So the victim was already dead when you discovered her, Inspector? No, my lord. Not dead, but not far off it. She mustered all her remaining strength to say these dying words. That rotter, Sholmes, will be the death of me. Ah, yes, I overheard that remark at the time too. Delivered in a rasping voice, full of malice. No. Those words indeed proved to be her last. The victim expired moments later, there on the sofa. How'd you get around that? The cause of death was identified as damage to the respiratory tract as a result of strangulation. Like, she must have accidentally strangled herself, but how? Pray, does the accused dare to contest the inspector's account? Certainly not. In fact, the inspector has done an unusually fine job of summarizing the salient points. Sholmes will be the death of me. Damning departing words indeed. In her final moments, the victim named her killer. You, Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
Objection!
But the defendant had no reason to take the victim's life. Perhaps you could tell the court, Mr. Sholmes, who exactly this Madame Rosie was. Yeah, I'd like to know. Ah, yes, of course. Did I ever never mention her to you? I'd extended an invitation to her that evening, though she is loquacious in the extreme. The most trivial of matters quickly becomes a quarrel. I was only too pleased to leave her presence to make tea. Right. It would appear, then, that the accused did in fact have a motive for silencing his eristic guest permanently.
Objection!
Putting that tenuous motive aside, what about the other mysteries surrounding the case? I'm inclined to agree with the defense. There are a remaining number of inscrutable details. The victim's alleged disappearance and subsequent reappearance, leaving no trail of footprints, for example. That's right. The crime described by the prosecution could never have happened. Yet the victim named the accused in her dying breath. Seems to me that my learned friend has overlooked a significant detail here. Nonsense. What have I overlooked? The man in the dock, the so-called great detective, all too frequently makes the following bold claim. There is no crime beyond the realms of possibility, no mystery beyond my powers of reasoning. So, Mr. Sholmes, you will have no difficulty in explaining how the crime, thus described, could have taken place. Therefore, I propose a toast to the great detective upholding his name. But of course, were I to put my mind to the matter, the crime would immediately appear to be, or present to be entirely feasible. Please, Mr. Sholmes, whose side are you on? All you need to say is no, even I can't think of a way that a crime like that could have been committed. Let the accused's admission be noted by the court. Though the crime may appear impossible to us mortals of inferior mental capacity, this man alone claims to know exactly how it was done.
Hold it!
Now hold on. That's a very... Thank you, counsels. I believe I've heard more than enough to proceed to my adjudication. The accused great detective did, in some inscrutable manner, willfully murder the victim, Madame Rosie. I therefore find the defendant guilty. What the hell? Let this man be taken from this courtroom and in some equally inscrutable manner be sanctioned for his crimes. Court is adjourned. Gotta be a dream or something, right? Right?
Hold it!
My word. My lord, please. The truth about the mystery surrounding this case. Unknown to another beside the great detective. What's this? Doesn't matter. He's already been found guilty. That's it. The gavel was dropped. Upon my word, Mr. Naruhodo, you are coming along wonderfully. You've deduced a fundamental truth about this case, I believe. Which would be, detective? That the truth to this case is known. Only to the true culprit, obviously. Is that not so, Gregson? Eh? What? Well, I suppose, yes? You don't mean... Are you suggesting, Mr. Sholmes, that you have an idea as to what actually happened that night? Maybe you should have said so sooner? That could have avoided this whole entire situation? An idea, my dear fellow. I could explain the entire incident from start to finish with not a single detail omitted.
Objection!
Well, do it then. Seems that the detective has failed to grasp the situation. Hey, Mr. Reaper, which of us has truly failed to grasp the situation, I wonder? Then answer me this. You claim that prior to the incident, the victim suddenly vanished without a trace from your room. If so, how exactly did Madame Rosie disappear? Why, naturally, via the window. It was ajar, after all. But that can't be. The room is a whole story above street level. And anyway, no prints were found in the snow. There are any number of ways one could could avoid leaving tracks in the snow, surely? Like, it wasn't snowing before she was there? Like, such as? Such as flying, for instance. What? What? A fatuous notion. Yep. And to where do you propose the victim flew, Mr. Sholmes? Home for winter? I don't know. Is it not entirely plain? To the culprit's abode, of course. Oh. For having left my suite, that is clearly where Madame Rosie was murdered. Take a moment to consider the cruel irony, if you will. By her own volition, she flew directly to her death.
Objection!
Do you forget, detective, the victim's corpse was discovered on your own sofa? No doubt because her killer carried her back there. But what about the lack of footprints in the snow again, then? There just weren't any. It flew her back, obviously. Other than our own from when we returned home ourselves. If by our footprints you refer to your own and mine, you're quite right, but there were those of another. On the night in question, there was one other person who could have conveyed the victim to my sofa. What? Good gracious. To whom do you refer, sir? A man whose somewhat unavailing presence at the scene of the crime would be questioned by no one. Unavailing? Ah! You don't mean? Indeed I do. A man who hastened to the scene directly upon learning of the incident at Scotland Yard. Namely, he's got to be like, you what? You, Inspector Gregson. Eh? When you arrived at my address on Baker Street, you were carrying the half-dead Madame Rosie with you. You waited for a suitable opportunity, and then laid the victim on my sofa. He did? What? How? I need more details on this absurd idea. But we were with the inspector when he arrived. How could he possibly have been carrying the victim? We would have noticed. My dear fellow, a most obvious answer presents itself, does it not? The inspector is rarely, if ever, without his overcoat. The victim was simply conveyed in one of its many pockets. What? I fail to see what makes this detective great, but I can say one thing with great certainty. A human body cannot fit into the pocket of an overcoat. It's not going to be a human or something. It's going to be like a doll or something like that. I believe you may have all fallen foul of a rather significant misapprehension. What? Madame Rosie was not a human. I beg your pardon? Mr. Sholmes. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, something troubles you perhaps. It's a bird. Makes perfect sense with the whole flew away. Just, oh. Because it's a parrot. Oh. Whatever gives you that idea. Exactly what sort of creature was Madame Rosie? This is not apparent already. A parakeet, of course. Huh? A most self-conceited specimen, in fact. Parakeet? She was an incessant talker, I must say. Her manner was quite intolerable at times. Want to turn every conversation, to a quarrel. I thought to strangle the creature on more than one occasion. You had a quarrel with a parakeet. But of course, why else would she have chosen to fly from my window so uncourtly that evening? To the abode of the inspector here beside me, no less. To Inspector Gregson's abode. But why? Because it's his parakeet? Because that was the parakeet's home, naturally. What are you? The inspector was called away from town for some days, so it was arranged that I would look after the bird. It would appear that she was overcome with a sudden yearning for her keeper. Thus, prompting her flight from my comfortable suite to the inspector's office at Scotland Yard. Well, Gregson, I believe it's high time you explained. Give us your account of what happened that night, sparing no details, of course. Inspector Gregson. Wait, so Sholmes was found guilty, but they didn't even make sure if it was a human before he was found guilty. Uh-huh. It was an accident. I got back from being away that evening, you see. I just walked through the door of my office. Never imagined Madame Rosie would be on her way back to the yard as well. I slammed the door shut behind me just as she was trying to fly through it. Right on her neck. Oh dear. So Madame Rosie. She got sandwiched between the door and the frame and fell to the floor. Never to move again. Because of me. And you said nothing while Sholmes was being found guilty of murder of a human. Well, I never. I had to do something. And just when I was trying to think of a plan, you fellas arrived, talking about some incident at Baker Street. I had to hide Madame Rosie in a hurry, so I stuffed her in my coat pocket and got in the cab with the pair of you. What could possibly have motivated you to behave in such a manner, Inspector? Lord Strongheart, sir. Oh. Lord Strongheart? Please tell me, I didn't hear that right. It was the Lord Chief Justice who asked me to look after the bird in the first place. She'd been living with the pigeons at the Supreme Court until then. But apparently the other birds had started to pick on her. So for the past 6 months or so, I've been caring for her in my office at the yard. I see. If anything happened to that bird, just imagine. No pay, no time off for the rest of my career. You mark my words, that's what's gonna happen. That's why you're hiding it, got it? That's why I... Well... but the victim's dying words, Inspector. The court heard earlier that Madame Rosie spoke the name of her assailant on her deathbed. That rotter, Sholmes, will be the death of me. Indeed she did. Quite uncalled for, wouldn't you agree? But those words are your true feelings, are they not, Inspector? Ugh. Clearly you speak of me often at your office at the Yard, in that disparaging manner. A manner that the merry parakeet took much delight in mimicking. Oh, come on. I mean, have you read this month's edition of Rants magazine, eh? Sorry. This is all absolutely true? My word. It would have been nice to have that as an actual case, to be honest. Something wrong, Lord Van Zykes? No. Nothing. I almost drifted off for a moment there. It's hard not to drift off when you've been kept waiting 3 hours already. So he invented a case in his head to keep himself entertained. I wonder if we'll manage to meet with Lord Strongheart at all today. We may have to deliver the report on the Windybank case that he asked for on another day. Tell me, Inspector, what became of that bird? Ah, Madame Rosie, you mean? She had a narrow escape, but she's still alive. I delivered her back here not long ago, actually, on Lord Strongheart's orders. He's hoping the pigeons will accept her now. It was something of a shock to hear that she'd been crushed in the doorway of your office, especially as we were all under the misapprehension that Madame Rosie was a person. Sorry about that. It was Lord Strongheart's demand that... Ah, good, you're here. I'm confused what part of that case was real, is that right? I apologise for my tardiness. I'm exactly 3 hours, 24 minutes, and 57 seconds late. Oh no, my lord. But no, please don't trouble yourself. Nothing gives us greater pleasure than standing here doing nothing for hours on end. Heartening. So, let's hear it then. Your report. The Windybank trial is concluded, but this is far from over. Seems that dark Far Eastern lawyer and I have some shared destiny. We will meet again. Of that I have no doubt. Did you see that, Lord Van Sykes, did you? Madame Rosie went flying off among the pigeons there, happy as loud as she was. Really, Inspector? You must be relieved. Indubitably. Again, I'm still confused like what part of that was real and what wasn't. But that's us done with the escapades. Let's have a little look around here though. We've got the accolades like stuff there. There's like trophies or something. The gallery. The portraits. Oh, it's Mr. Naruhodo. Where's... I saw this online somewhere. There's one that's like, it's adorable. With Sholmes. And Iris and some Mikitaba stuff as well. I do like them. I do like them. Spoiler alert, yeah. It's probably gonna be in here then. Like from the vaults. Ooh. Oh, well I've shared it on Discord. There's like basically concept art for like Iris is a baby and she's crawling all over Sholmes, and Mikitaba's got some bottles and stuff like that of like milk. It's adorable. Moving pictures. What? What? September 2017. What?
これより逆転裁判15年を振り返る特別法廷を開廷します。弁護側、検察側とも準備は
Yeah, we get the idea. That's why it's going on. Ah, they like little people in the seats. That is just, the Great Special Trial. Why? Like, what? I'm gonna look at them separately myself. It just takes too long. This is meant to be the Escapades. We're just having a little look. The tailor though, it's like I could have switched these over any time during the second game. Like that's a good looking costume there. Like this, I absolutely adore. Like the color scheme, the frilliness of it, the little bag she has, so lovely. This, not so much, but it is very Sholmes. It is very Sholmes, but I prefer that. I do prefer that. And there's credits, and there's the auditorium, which has little bits about the music and stuff, and little bits from people who worked on the game over to the right there. Like, it's lovely. It's lovely. The voice recitals.
Objection!
Indeed.
Hold it!
Objection!
Objection!
Objection! Objection!
Heard that way too often.
Objection!
Indeed. But that's just going to be done with the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We've done 1 and 2, we've done the Escapades. It's fun. I've covered before how much fun I had with this. I hope you enjoyed your time here as well. So that's just going to be done. So what's coming next on the channel? Well, because of when games are coming out and stuff next week, it's very much a case of I don't want to start anything. So we've got 3 days of nothing. 3 days, 4 slots for videos to come out. So that's 12 slots. If only there was a game that was 12 chapters long that I could split like that. That would be fine to do, and something I kind of want to get out of the way. It's Yakuza 3. 12 chapters. And I want to get through it as quickly as possible because if you've been following Yakuza, you'll know why. It's very much like it's mechanically really, there's issues with, especially with the PC version, which I've got apparently. I'll probably be playing on easy just to get through the story as quickly as possible. Obviously, I'll be doing the gameplay, but it's mechanically, it's going to be iffy for me is the best way of putting it. So I was like, I want to try and just get through that story, understand what's going on with Kiryu and stuff like that before I get to Yakuza 4 at some point. So we will be doing Yakuza 3 for 3 days. That's it. Just all of it. Just boom. Get it out of the way. Get it done. Ready for Yakuza 4. And ready for other games coming our way like Persona 3. Maybe Fire Emblem. I'm leaning towards maybe doing Fire Emblem at this point. And then, Neptunia. Sisters versus Sisters. It's gonna be fun. So anyway, we'll see you in the future with whatever you want to watch, wherever, whenever. You will not know all that stuff. So we'll see you then. Ta-da for now.